Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about From Season 2. So, From is a show I once talked about, I believe, last year or so. That's when it came out. And it originally came out on Epic, but Epic got rebranded into MGM Plus. And so, like, you can actually do like a free 1 week trial for MGM. They have a whole bunch of movies, some TV shows. Not a whole lot I like. I like Britannia. I like Chapel Wait, which got canceled, and Britannia got canceled. And of course, there's From. I haven't watched that King Arthur show or Beacon yet, so I'm kind of curious. And so, like, From is a very good, freaky show. It reminds me of Lost, even though I never watched Lost except for one episode, but I know what a lot goes on in Lost. Basically, it's whatever the creator can think of and then put on screen. All this freaky, unnatural, paranormal, sci-fi-ish, ghoulish type stuff. And so, that is how this show is. And it picks off directly where the last season left off, which left off on some major cliffhangers and stuff. So thank God it got a second season. And thank God it got a third season. So the third season's gonna come out next year, because what happened at the end was all like, oh my God. But at that same time, I'm just kind of like, I wish they would let it breathe a little bit more before they did this ending to the second season. Because I would love to see this show go on for a couple of seasons, maybe 5 at the most. But I can see this going into 3. And one thing I feared when I reviewed the first season kind of happened a little bit in the second. The thing I feared is like, do not forget about your main premise and just start doing all this freaky paranormal craziness in the show, because once you fall down that rabbit hole, it's kind of gonna get hard to come out of it. I get it, this show is strange and weird, but it's like, just like, chill a little bit. You don't need this many twists and turns and different plots and whatnots. And it kind of did that this season with that, where it kind of, it would go to one narrative, then you find out something new, then it goes into this other narrative, then it does this other freaky paranormal stuff, and then it goes into this other one. And it's kind of like it loses that hindsight, that original premise of what I liked about this show when I first watched it. Why did I like this show when I first watched it? Because of the simple fact there are these weird monsters that live out in the woods. These monsters have the appearance of people, but not just any people. People from the 1950s for some bizarre reason. It's never really explained, but for whatever reason, they dress that way. And they can talk, and they always have a freaky smile on their face. And so, like, when they come towards your house, they go near the window and they want to come in the house. There are these magical talismans that can keep them out. But if you open the door, they will come in. And when they reveal themselves, they look pretty monstrous and stuff. And they eat you and rip you apart and everything. So, but they only come out at night, never during the day. And that was just freaky all on its own. But there's another thing that made me like this show in the first season. The fact that there's a town where people cannot escape. Basically, when you drive on this one road and you see a tree in the middle of the road, basically you're now trapped in that town. And every time you try to leave, it just loops you back around and you go back to the town. So these people have been trapped there, some for a few years, others for a few days, and one man has been there for decades, to the point where he has been driven insane. And no matter what, they don't know how or why they can't leave this town. That right there is just beautiful on its own. But then in the first season, they started throwing in some more stuff. There's this one girl who has like visions kind of, and somebody is talking to her in her head, and they like carve words into her skin. So they make her kill people, talking about, oh, we'll let you be free of this place if you just kill a couple of people and stuff like that. But they never do. Then, like they created like this tower to try to communicate with somebody on the outside world, and somebody responded, and somebody is monitoring them. Who, we still do not know. Then when the people who didn't like the fact that they're trying to discover answers, they prevented them from finding out the truth by causing things like collapses or storms or something like that. Then two characters went kind of like on a journey quest to try to escape this place, where they just went to one freaky area to another, to the point where they was in a tent one night. You hear the wind blowing. They wake up and there's spider webs everywhere. Freaky, but don't make no sense. Then there's like a tree with a giant hole, and if you get inside, you teleport to another place in like, that area of town. Never explained, but that what makes it freaky. And so when they started adding all these other freaky layers, it's just kind of like, you're kind of losing my interest just a tad, because you're getting away from the monster aspect and why they're trapped in town. And this season does exactly that. It's one more twist after another. And then there are like these ghoulish dead kids and something about a tower and rescuing kids. And then these cicada like fly looking things. And it's just one more freaky thing like after another. And you rarely see the monster people this season. And so that kind of disappoints me a little bit. I mean, the freaky stuff is still good, but it's just kind of like, it's hard to keep track, you know what I'm saying? Because, whenever you watch a fictional show like this, something has to make some sort of logical sense. That logical sense is like the foundation of your show. But then when you start adding in other little teeny tiny chapters and stuff like that, then it's just kind of like, I don't know what to expect. And it's kind of like, okay, whatever the writers come up with, they just do whatever they want. And it becomes a bit muffled because of that. But still, like I said, this is a very intriguing and very, very good show. And I'm so glad people are not sleeping on this show, because there are people who are actually watching this show. And thank God, because I don't know nobody who really has MGM Plus. Because this show is not on DVD, and most likely it never will be on DVD, because MGM Plus is going to want to keep that money to themselves. And of course, to keep it to themselves, you have to stay subscribed. How much is it? I honestly don't know. When I did the Epic thing, I did like a free trial. And when they went to the MGM thing, I did another free trial and everything. So I think it's around $5 to $7. Not bad. And it's cheaper than most, but still, yeah. But it wouldn't be so bad if I could find something else interesting to watch on this app and everything. I don't want to watch Billy the Kid. I don't want to watch any of the other stuff on there. It just doesn't really, catch my interest and stuff. And the movies they have on there are movies either I have on other apps, or I have on DVD, or I have no interest in. But this show I have interest in. So when the next season comes out, and once it's done, of course I'm gonna get the subscription, and I'm gonna binge the show. And also, you should check out Chapel Wait. Now, the only reason why that got canceled is because of the writer and the actor strike. Because it was renewed for a second season, but things got held up because of COVID, and then the writer strike, and then the actor strike, and then bam, they just said, let's just cancel this show. But thank God it didn't happen to this one. See, this is what happened when you wait too long to create your show, Chapel Wait. But there is supposed to be a Chapel Wait type movie that is not connected to the show. But Chapel Wait is based on what's that man who writes scary crap? Who's that man who did the It movies? Who wrote those? Crap. I keep wanting to say R.L. Stine, but not him. It's the other guy, Stephen King. That's it, Stephen King. Like, this is his project, like he wrote this as a short story like years ago, and people have like adapted it here and there, and it's supposed to be a movie adaptation with completely different actors, a completely different story that's unrelated to the Chapel Wait show on MGM Plus. So One thing before I get into character profiles is that who this show exactly revolves around. Like, it revolves around a group of people. And they added in new people who came on a bus at the end of the second season. Now, what's really interesting is that characters from the first season who were like, who the show followed and the main characters, they take somewhat of a back seat this season. Not to the new people, but to the other people of the first season who didn't get that much screen time. So we get more character development and plot stories with them, which I really appreciate because you don't want them feeling left out. And so, but a lot of those emotional storylines, like with that one family, and like Boyd. I hate saying his name, Boyd. Ah, can they name it like Floyd? I can say Floyd, but not Boyd. And it's like, I hate saying his name. They don't really follow his son and his son's girlfriend that much. And Jade's just exactly the same way he was last season. So there ain't really nothing different with him, and he's still doing the exact same stuff. But for the most part, it does revolve around characters from the first season who didn't get that much screen time. And as for the new characters, you get a little sprinkles of them here and there and stuff. Now, what's interesting is that some things kind of get a little retconned here. First being the monsters. They look redesigned for the most part, not by much, but by somewhat. In the first season, they had more of a humanoid looking face, but still monstrous. But in the second season, they go full on monster. This is probably because they have a bigger budget now, and MGM probably threw in more money. So yeah, they do have more of a monstrous looking face. Another thing that kind of gets retcon is Sarah. Sarah heard voices in her head. We also saw that there would be burn marks of words within her arms. This is now done. They bring up she had the voices in her head, but we don't see the scars on her arm or nothing like that. So that is really, really fascinating. Another thing that gets retcon is the persuasion of the monsters. In the past, you had to stay away from the windows because the monsters will come to the windows and they will talk to you, and you will kind of be under a trance or listen to what they say and be stupid enough to open the door. Here, it's not like that for some reason. We see them up against the window still talking to people, but we see people the new people being defiant and not really giving in to what it is they're saying. Also, the monsters they act kind of different. They still rip you apart in shreds and eat you, stuff like that. But for one girl, they decided not to rip her apart, but to shove a metal rod through her head and attach it to a tree. She is still alive. That thing sticking out her brain. They said they wanted her to watch and be scared. This is unique, interesting, and odd because they never did that in the first season. In the first season, it's mostly just they will get you and rip you apart and eat you and stuff. Let's start with the main character himself, the one name I can't pronounce. Boyd. I'm just gonna call him Sheriff. So Sheriff, you remember him? He was the operator dude from the second and third Matrix movie with the dreads and everything. He also voiced Blade in Blade the anime. So we pick up directly with him from where he left off. He is on that journey quest with Sarah, and she shoved him in the tree. And when he came out the tree, he was in a dungeon of all things. Now, Sheriff is a very noble character. He reminds me of Rick Grimes. It's where he's a noble man. He wants to do the right thing, but he ends up always screwing up. And in this season, he screws up a lot. And it gets kind of frustrating after a while because he is our main character who leads the show. And I remember last season, I think he had some kind of disease that was killing him or something, but they completely just ran past that and don't really even bring it up. Anyway, he has problems with his son because his son is pissed that the sheriff had to shoot his wife, the mother, you know what I'm saying? Because something took over her mind and made her go crazy and stuff. And I think she started killing people, so he had to shoot her. Because of that, Elias just doesn't want nothing to do with his father. So anyways, the sheriff is in the dungeon. Well, no, first he's in like a well and he's stuck there and he's talking to somebody and they throw him a rope. So he climbs out. And when he climbs out, he's in the dungeon and he sees a old man, probably about in his 70s, 80s, something like that. And he's chained to a wall. He's extremely skinny and has not ate nothing. There are other bodies in there, but they are dead. So that begs the question. Now, in front of the man is like the little rope device, but it's a little far away. And how in the world did that man trip it to make it the rope go down? So somebody else had to have been in that room or something like that. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, this must be a hallucination, right? I mean, because people hallucinate people all the time, right? And where is exactly this dungeon type place? Because we've never seen it before. So anyways, he's talking to the man and being like the Rick Grimes type person, the sheriff tries to save that man. The man's like, no, man, you promised me you would kill me. See, there are these worms inside the man's body, and these worms are feeding off the man, and these worms are what's keeping him alive. It's so painful that he just wants to die. And so, like, but the sheriff will not kill him and stuff. He tries to free him, but then the music box that played with the ballerina is too much for the man to take, and so are the worms in his body. So what he does is that he scratches the sheriff's shoulder and he places his blood inside the sheriff's body. And he's all like, my blood is now your blood. And then the man just like dies and stuff. And it's just like, what the heck did he mean exactly? Well, when the sheriff walks a little bit more, he's completely out of the dungeon, and we see the remnants of the dungeon that's been broken up and everything. So it was kind of hallucination and kind of not. And so he heads back into town. He has no idea where Sarah is at, because she says she'll be right behind him once she goes into the tree, but he doesn't see her because the tree can take you anywhere. When he's back in town, he is having all kinds of hallucinations, mainly that of a little box with a ballerina in it, a music box, and it plays. Sometimes the ballerina herself will become full size and dance alongside him. He is also having visions of the priest who died in the first season. He's hallucinating. Nobody will believe him that he's hearing music, and nobody will believe him when he said there are worms in his body when he looks at his arm. And so, like, he's now having to deal with this type of psychosis, and it's making him go completely insane. On top of all that, people are starting to lose trust in him because he's not always telling them the truth. When Kenny finds out that Sarah is the one who opened the door, let the monsters in, and ripped her dad to shreds, Kenny is furious and stuff. See, Kenny didn't know that last season. And when Kenny finds Sarah down in the basement of like the church or something like that, he gets the sheriff. But we know Sarah is a murderer. That's why Kenny was fearful of her. But then she reveals to Kenny what she did. This causes the biggest rift between that of the sheriff and Kenny, to the point where Kenny resigns and everything as deputy. And we see in the flashback how Kenny became deputy and stuff. And so I do like this dynamic and character development of those two like butting heads, and they butt heads the entire season. But of course, Kenny is conflicted because the sheriff is like the new father figure to him. So he still cares about him and stuff, but he's still agitated and irritated by him. Anyways, when they do realize that, hey, there are worms inside the sheriff, they have to figure out what the heck they're going to do for him. Well, the monsters come around. And so, like, the sheriff's son ends up getting stabbed and he has to do a blood transfusion, but he doesn't want to because he don't want the worms to go inside what's his son's body. But they convince him, that y'all blood types are the only, like, positives, and so you're the only person who can do the transfusion. But then the sheriff does the most ballsy thing ever. Since it's nighttime, he's just kind of like, you know what? I need one of these monsters. He cuts his hand and he goes out looking for monsters. This was some bravery, you know what, boy, because this man did not flinch. And when the monsters came around, they circled him and he just started waving his hand around like the monsters. And one of them's all like, ooh, I like this game and everything. For whatever reason, they just didn't attack. He slices the throat of one of the monsters. It does no good. Nothing kills these monsters. So I don't understand why they have shotguns and guns, because literally they will upload bullets in these monsters and they don't fall down. It just goes right through them, or it bounces right off like Superman. And so, like, actually, no way, it doesn't bounce off and it doesn't go, yeah, it goes in their body, but it doesn't do nothing, right? So anyways, he grabs the throat of the man throat he slit, and he's all like, my blood is your blood. And then nothing happens at first until the monster man starts to have seizures, passes out, and dies. This causes the other monsters to kind of stop, and he runs back in the house. So now they have a weapon against the monsters, but not really. And so, like, they deduce that, the worms kill the monsters, but how the heck they gonna, like, inject it into the monsters? After they do an autopsy and everything, Kenny objects to this because he doesn't want to bring the monster inside the clinic. But they do it anyways, and they examine it, and they can't find no liquid substance within the monster whatsoever. And when Christy, the nurse lady, finds out that these things are actually human, they have human organs inside of them, but yet they're monsters somehow, and there's no blood. But they find bile waste, which is gross, nasty, and yellow. And so, like, he decides, you know what if we coat the bullet rounds with bile and shoot it at the monsters, kind of like a silver bullet type thing. So him and some other people, they go out into the woods and they test this theory, but the theory does not, like, pan out. Basically, the bullets just go through them and it does no harm to them. So they are utterly screwed and everything. Other than that, the only other thing he really does is, like, he's there for the marriage of his son and that one girl, Fatmia. And other than that, like, he's having to deal with Sarah. Because Sarah, he's the only person who would really talk to Sarah. Other than, like, the new guy and everything. Because the thing is, he doesn't want to put Sarah in the box, and he doesn't want to kill her. And the people in town are pissed because they're kind of like, look, man, the box is your idea, and you put other people in the box. And she went around murdering folks and stuff like that. So it makes him at odds with the rest of the town. Basically, this town does not want people trying to find out the truth. And if you try to find out the truth, it will do things that prevent you from finding out the truth. So when they found out a way to kill the monsters, the town decided, you know what? The little worm things that was inside the man, driving him crazy and then driving the sheriff crazy, I'm just going to unleash that on the entire town. What does it do? Well, you can't go to sleep now. You can if you want, but your nightmares will kill you. And in your nightmares, there's always something. There's, like, like a demon looking thing, or they're like, bugs coming out your mouth. Somebody's trying to drown you. Something like when people wake up, they have the wounds for whatever tried to harm them and everything. One boy was almost drowned in the tub. Kenny arm got burnt by a bug, you know what I'm saying? Something is feeding off their fear and their hopes and stuff, but it's mostly feeding off their fear. And so, like, now they're like, okay, look, y'all, we can't go to sleep. This is, of course, I wish we could have seen more how it drives people crazy not to go to sleep. But, with 10 episodes, they just didn't have enough time. So that would have been nice. And it's kind of like, Um, so the sheriff's like, crap, dude, I've screwed everybody. So one dude takes it out on him, shoots him twice. No, shoot him one time, and the sheriff retaliated by shooting him twice. And so, because it killed like his girlfriend or whoever that girl was that was staying with him. And so, like, the sheriff's like, I gotta fix this because now there are three people who are in a coma. Basically, it's this weird nursery rhyme. And like, there's a new character. I know I'm sounding scatterbrained, but this show is scatterbrained, so it's kind of hard to like go from one plot to like a next. Anyway, so one of the new guys has this psychic ability that has like visions and stuff like that. And in his vision, there was somebody singing a lullaby, and it has to do with three people. And so like three people are now in this coma, and they're constantly screaming and stuff. So the sheriff realizes it's the music that makes them do that. Whenever the music stops, bad stuff normally happens. So he goes back to where he found like the dungeon place. He does something that puts him back in like the dungeon, and he tries to destroy the music box. Something about darkness and light. So he takes a torch that he thinks has some significance and everything. He lights it up and he tries to destroy the music box, but he gets an image of his wife telling him it doesn't feed off your fear, it feeds off your hopes, and if you destroy the box, you'll kill the people. But she's trying to prevent him from doing that. He's basically like, screw it. And he just like, destroys the music box, and that releases people from their nightmarish dreams that could kill them and stuff. So like I said before, it's just kind of like one thing after another to make the show interesting and freaky, but it kind of moves away for how they got stuck there and all these monsters and stuff. Elias and Fatmia, I think that's how you say her name, I'm not sure. They don't really do much this season. They're in the beginning trying to help the people on the bus to get inside, but they don't want to listen. Some people stay outside at night. Fatmia is acting frantic and trying to go outside and get the people to come indoors when the monsters are coming. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, because she is literally trying to save people who don't want to listen. You know what I'm saying? And so she's frantic and she's trying so best to get the people in, but they will not come in. And you gotta understand, man, this is the New World Order. And in the New World Order, if there's heebie-jeebie monsters outside and people don't want to listen, they want to go outside, and the boogeyman gets these people. Look, man, let's let the boogeyman get these people. You tried to warn them, there ain't no point for you dying. Pretty much like what Elias says. And so like, he don't really say it, but I'm just paraphrasing. And so like, other than that, they really don't do absolutely nothing in the entirety of the season. They had way more character development in the first season. But basically, when this one bald dude is pissed because they have to ration food because there are new people now, he doesn't want to do that, and he gets into an argument with Elias, turns around with the knife in his hand and stabs him by mistake. He is bleeding profusely out, and they're trying their best to cover the wound. So Fatmia and the one new guy, they hop in the van and they just drive all the way to like the clinic from that one house they're in. And it's a really cool way. I like the way they drove it. You can tell it's a one singular shot thing where you see a little bit through the windshield, inside, outside, stuff like that. I like the way it's shot. So they get him to the clinic and they save his life. This is when his dad is now able to give the blood transfusion because he's now clean and stuff. And so like, other than that, like, he's saved and him and her get married. And not only that, but she is now pregnant and stuff. Everybody seems happy and overjoyed, but if it was me, I'll be like, dude, how can you bring a child into this town and there are monsters around? That baby gonna start crying and it's gonna alert the monsters. Now, one thing I did not mention with the sheriff. One thing I didn't mention with the sheriff is like he unleashed a whole new boogeyman into like the town. Jade is exactly the same exact way he was in season one. He's still angry. He's still trying to find a solution to everything. He's still a drunk and he still shouts at everybody. But he doesn't want people to shout at him because it hurts his feelings. But he's still as rude as ever. He's still trying to figure out what these symbols mean and stuff like that. He has hallucinations, but different ones this time. It's of a man named Christopher. He finds a photograph of Christopher holding like this journal. He reads through the journal, but in the photograph is a young Victor. And so, like, he's constantly paired with Victor this season, asking him questions and all this other stuff. Victor does not want to say because he's crazy in the head, this and that. But after a while, they bond, and he still has no idea what these symbols are. But Victor tells him he saw them in a cave. No, not Victor does, but the wife lady tells him about the cave and the symbols and stuff. Because Victor didn't want to do it. So Victor shows him how to get in the cave. He goes in there with some rope and everything. He's still having a whole bunch of hallucinations. And he has a hallucination of like a bunch of little kids lined up and everything. This is the same cave that one lady and Victor was in at the end of the first season when the house collapsed and stuff, and that hole in the basement. And there are dead people, monsters living down there. They sleep during like the day, but they look decomposed almost. And so, like, that's basically really just what he does this season, still trying to figure out answers and figuring out who this Christopher person is, which Victor told him something changed Christopher and it turned him evil. Kenny, boy, poor Kenny, he is going through the motions this season. So not only is he the acting sheriff and everything and trying to like, calm down the new people with Donna, but like, ooh, one of the new people is Mary Ella, I think that's her name. And that's the fiance of Christy, his girlfriend. What are the odds? And everybody thinks that's so suspicious. How in the world did her fiance get trapped in that town and just so happened to be on the bus? Well, it turns out that, the fiance was there because she was going to rehab. I'll get into them a little bit later. And so him and Christy, he told her, I love you and all this other stuff. But the moment Christy's fiance came back, she pretty much just left that of Kenny and went back to her fiance. And this really hurts Kenny a lot. But the thing is, they didn't really have this whole love triangle bickering type thing, which I would have loved because it would have introduced more drama in the show. And so, like, but they don't do that. They just skirt around it for some bizarre reason. He just accepts it for some bizarre reason. But then he has to go through the more pain of him and the sheriff constantly butting heads now because he's pissed at the sheriff. And so we learned that when he came there, the sheriff saw him all like, I need a deputy and everything, and I need you to be my right hand man. So he made him his deputy. But he is still pissed about the whole Sarah thing. And he hates Sarah to death. Like, he wants her in the box bad. And it was to the point I thought Kenny might have shot Sarah because that's how agitated and irritated he is when it comes to her. Even the mom doesn't want nothing to do with her. Kenny goes to the point where he destroys something to Sarah that meant a lot of significance to her. And like when they have to keep each other awake, for whatever reason, they paired those two up together. So Kenny's just sitting there not saying nothing, pissed off, and Sarah just running off the mouth, trying to be as nice as possible. But he literally tells her, just shut your mouth. I don't want to hear nothing you gotta say. And Sarah's all like, since everybody hates me so much, why don't you just, like, she wants Kenny to kill her and everything. Kenny's not going to do it, but Kenny's all like, look, man, there's a spare gun right there. Do whatever you want. And she plays roulette with the revolver to where Kenny has to literally persuade her not to do it. So in a way, he is kind of forgiving her a little bit, but he still hates her guts. I feel so bad for Kenny this season, man, because it's just like, he lost his father, his mom is there, he wants to leave this place, he found a great girlfriend, then they break up. And so she can go back in the arms of her former lover and stuff. And his father figures somebody he's butting heads with, he doesn't fully trust him no more. Speaking of Sarah, Sarah is barely in this show this season. Basically, she's missing for like the first 3, 4 episodes, but then she ended up in like the basement when she went in that tree. This is like when she meets Kenny and the sheriff, and so basically everybody in town hates her because Kenny ratted her out about who all the people she killed and tried to kill and all this stuff. Oh no, that he ratted her out saying that she's back and that the sheriff knew all this stuff and never told nobody. That he took her on that quest and everything. And so Sarah, like the thing about Sarah is that she did kill and try to kill people. Yes, she killed her brother. She killed Kenny's father by opening the door to let the monsters in. She killed somebody else, I don't know who, and she tried to kill Ethan, the little boy. But that's only because the voice in her head told her, hey, if you do this, I'll let everybody in town go. And she went to Christy and she's all like, if there was a way to leave town and see your loved ones again, even if it's like a bad thing to do, should I do it? And Christy just thought she was talking nonsense, right? She's like, I'll do anything to see like my lover again. So this is what caused her to try to kill the little boy. So the voices in her head are literally kind of like making her go crazy, and she thought she was doing like a good thing. So it's not like she's real like a murderer, right? But everybody hates her in town and looks at her. And when she goes back to her old house, it's now taken by other people. And she just wants like her stuff, and they gave it to Kenny's mom. But she wants an ornament more than anything else. It has a lot of significance to her. I forget why. It has something to do with her family. So when she gets that back and everything, she gets into a huge argument with Kenny when she tries to be nice to him, and he takes the ornament and he smashes it. That was so heartbreaking when I saw that, because you saw how much that meant to her. And even though she did bad things, it's not like she's a real terrible person. That's the thing. Like, these voices are literally torturing her in the head, and they will burn words into her arms. Well, at least in the first season they did. They don't do none of that in the second season. And to see Kenny do that was just like so monstrous, but he was enraged. But she picks up the pieces anyway and holds them close to her chest and just leaves and stuff. After that, when I say she leaves, I mean she leaves. You don't see her again towards the end of like the season. And so this is when she's just kind of like, screw it. I'm in this town. Y'all gonna have to accept it. And she tries to be nice to everybody. And, she asks like Donna, and I want something to do. And so Donna makes her fold clothes. And this is when she gets like, paired up with Kenny when they have to stay awake. And like, she's just chatting his head off, trying to be as nice as possible. But he doesn't want to hear it. But then she just wants Kenny to kill her, which of course he does not do. So when she sees the spirit gun, she puts 2 rounds in it and she plays roulette. And it's a very chilling scene where she's all like, she just wants it to end and this and that. The first click doesn't work, but then Kenny knocks the gun out her hand before she can try like a second time. After this, they don't really she doesn't really forgive her, but he'll just like be okay with her just kind of like being there for like now, Christy and Mariella. Fun fact about Christy, she's a nurse in real life, and she plays that on the show. And so, well, the actress, that is. And so we get more of her this season, and she's a very pleasant person, but she breaks Kenny's heart when Mariella comes off that bus. She is ecstatic to have her back, and they rekindle what they have, but at the same time, she does feel a little bad because of what she did to Kenny. She doesn't tell Mariella about Kenny and her. And you can tell it really does hurt her to leave Kenny to go back to her ex. But she goes back to her ex and everything's happy and good until she realizes her ex is back on drugs. And that's why she was on the bus to go to rehab. So she has to get her clean, and it's a very tough night because not only is she tripping from withdrawal from drugs, but the nightmare things are attacking her and stuff. She does her best to like patch up people however she can. She patched up Elias. She could not save the girl who had the rod stuck through her head and everything. And like, and she's just trying to do the best she like really can. When they do the autopsy on like the monster and everything, she is furious and very shocked to find out that this thing has human organs. I am curious now, why is everybody dressed like the 1950s when it comes to monsters, and they are indeed human? But she's furious because there is no blood liquid whatsoever. She needs something with the DNA in it, like a liquid substance, to kill these monsters. When she starts beating the crap out of it, then the bowel releases. And this was gives the sheriff the idea to coat the bullets with the bowel, but it does not work. And so they have no new solution. They have nothing that could kill, like, the monsters, because they ain't doing that worm approach no more. Now, the only person who's really nice to that of Sarah is the new guy, Eglin. Eglin is just a random guy who was on the bus. He had a dream that something bad was going to happen, and he tries to get the bus driver to stop. And so, like, she doesn't, and they end up in town. He also has, like, these visions here and there, and he was able to outrun, like, the monsters when he refused to go inside at night. So basically, him and her, they bond and everything about how different they are and the visions and stuff like that. And it seems like they're going to be like a romance type couple. But that's not the only person that has caught, like, his fancy and stuff. I'm trying to think, what is that one girl's name? I think it's Julie, I think, who's part of like the family. She likes Eglin and stuff like that, and him and her talk and bond and stuff like that. So I could see a love triangle happening, but like, it hasn't happened yet. But for the most part, he's really nice and he helps people out. He had a nightmare that a woman tried to drown him and everything in like a tub. Donna and Randall. So Donna is still exactly the same way she was last season. She is bossy, she's headstrong, and she don't take no bull crap, especially when she has a rifle in her hand. And so like she's trying her best to calm the new people down and make them believe that like there are monsters in the woods, but of course they don't want to believe it. So she's butting heads with them left and right. The bus driver doesn't really have much to do. She's just there, gets upset, drinks a little, and that's about it. But Randall is the big problem. Him and her butt heads the entire time. Randall is the bad boy of the show, and he does not take orders well. Him and Donna butt heads so bad to the point where it's about to get physical, where he tells her, he pulls guns on people, all kind of crap, and like, he even threatened to beat her up to the point where she ain't having it, took her rifle and basically punked him out and forced him to sleep on the bus with only one talisman, and so with the windows with no blinds on it. So the monsters come around, but he's defiant and he's just like taunting the monsters and stuff, right? And so one interesting thing about the monster, when the monster went on the bus earlier that one night and killed this old couple, it sat down at the bus and played around with the wheel, almost like it had a memory of what it used to do back in the day. Fascinating, but the show doesn't really elaborate much on that, other than we find out the monsters were human. So Randall is at the point where he convinces Jim that, you made contact, like him and Donna made contact last season at the end with somebody who did not want them figuring out stuff, and warned Jim about like, his wife at like the basement and stuff. Donna and of course the sheriff still butt heads a little bit, but they have more of a reconciling this season. But Jim is persuaded by Randall's all like, you know what, man, if somebody is experimenting on us and watching us, it's probably somebody within the town relaying like a mole and everything, a spy. So he points the finger at Donna. And it's to the point where he just follows Donna around. And at the point when you kind of do believe Randall, you do believe somebody in town is like a spy. And Donna starts to seem that way. And he takes her hostage and everything, only for her to get rescued. After that, he gets left behind, and it looks like he's about to be attacked by like the monsters. But instead, that whole nursery rhyme thing got to him, and he's one of the people in like the coma. that the sheriff has to like rescue and stuff. The family don't do much this season. I mean, much of nothing. Ethan barely does anything. He mostly just talks to Victor, but barely does that when Victor's kind of pissed at him a little bit. Um, Ethan, like, he pretty much wants to see Sarah after she tried to kill him and everything, and it's all like, he don't like her, he ain't gonna forgive her. That boy stands up to that girl, like, I ain't scared of you. Oh, Julie really doesn't do anything, not as much as she did last season. Basically, she's just really upset because her dad is trapped when the house collapses on him. Other than that, she gets along with the family a whole lot better than she did last season. Jim is trapped. When he gets back to the house and tries to like rescue his wife, he thinks she's collapsed in the hole, but she's in the tunnel with Victor. He doesn't know that. The house collapses on him, and I think Tom, the bartender. So the people on the bus and some of the people in town try to rescue them. Every time somebody tries to like dig that hole or like rescue them, that the hole collapses more, and so does the house. So where the house traps him, some guy, and like Tom. Basically, it's something in that town don't want them finding out the truth. It tried to stop Tabitha and everything. So him and Tom and that guy have to spend the night there under the rubble. Hopefully the monsters won't get them because, nighttime is coming. The random guy just dies from internal bleeding, but Tom literally gets ripped to shreds by like one of the little monster people and stuff. But it doesn't get him. Other than that, he really doesn't do much for the season, and he doesn't tell nobody in town that he made contact with whoever it is voice from last season, except for like somebody else. And he's upset at Sarah, of course, because she tried to kill Ethan, and he's pissed at the sheriff because of that. But then, he decides to go monster hunting. He wants to know what the heck they do during the day. So he teams up with Randall, and they take his drone. They try to fly his drone up into the sky, but it won't go up that far because he's trying to get like an antenna up. He's no longer trying to build like a tower to communicate with people and stuff. So that's kind of, I guess the antenna is the closest thing they have to that season, but it's not really as effective as the tower. The whole building the tower thing was cool last season. But anyways, he gets persuaded by Randall thinking there's a mole there, and then he rescues Donna when Randall tries to like off her and everything. And basically, other than that, he really doesn't do much. But his wife is the hero who actually escapes the town. So for the most part, it's just Victor and his Tabitha, and they're like paired together. And sometimes Jade is too. And so Tabitha is having weird visions. She's constantly having visions of little kids. But these kids look dead and ghoulish and everything. Not only that, but she's having visions of this little game thing that like her son plays with, these little building block type things. And she has no idea why. After talking to Jade a little bit, she tells him, she saw that symbol he's been obsessed with and everything down in the caves, in the tunnels and stuff. So Victor finally spills the beans here and there. Victor tells them about his mother and now his sister we never knew about. We keep seeing flashbacks of Victor talking to his mom, but then it's just him and the mom. But then they later add in the sister. So this is a new revelation. When the mom's all like, she's going to go to the tower and free the kids and we will go home. So, but then the sister runs after them, but he's too scared and he lives there in town all by himself for many decades until new people come, and he just goes insane and everything. So Tabitha is trying to get to this tower type thing and trying to realize what these kids are about and why they need to be free. It's a weird twist that I'm feeling is like it's gonna be an odd payoff. I don't like the idea that these kids supposedly trapped in the tower, kind of like that man was in the dungeon, and they have to be freed, and that's what's trapping them there. It's weird and it's odd. But anyway, Victor tells her that there's one teleporting tree that will only take you to the tower and the tower only. She goes in the tree, she walks up the stairs, she sees a bunch of toys everywhere, and then all of a sudden she sees the boy in white, the boy from last season that tried to save some of the people. And he tells her, I'm sorry, but this is the only way. I knew exactly what he was going to do because they're up high and there's a window. He pushes her and she goes through the window and then it goes to black. And all of a sudden she wakes up in a hospital in the real world. The doctors tell her she was found in the woods when a bunch of hikers found her. She has bruises and scratches on her face. And she has no idea how she got there. She looks out the window and you see the city. And then it just ends. She finally made it out. Sadly, though, I wish it was the sheriff who could have done that because last season he tried his best to find a way out of there. He is the main hero of the show. It should have been his moment, but then he failed at the beginning of the first season and he kept failing after that. So that really sucks. But I'm glad somebody got out. And so what the heck is gonna happen next season? Now, this whole revelation of something about the kids and this weird symbol, how they're stuck in a tower, that's just kind of weird because supposedly that's what's keeping them trapped there. And to free those kids is gonna free the people. But if everybody just goes through that tree, jump through the window when they're out in the tower, then they will go back into the real world. You know what I'm saying? But they don't know that, of course. So how is Sarah gonna get back there? She goes back on that road that takes them to the trap town and everything. But it's weird because people come from different directions all around America, but somehow they mysteriously end up on this road. So whoever trapped them there literally wants them to free, supposedly, allegedly, these kids. And so it brings them there. But still, who are the people that talked to Jim last season and threatened him and stuff? And also, every time, like I said, when they threaten him, and anybody tries to find out anything, they make bad stuff happen. Personally, I would love it if it was aliens. Aliens that came to Earth, they're monsters. They make themselves look like humans, or they go inside human bodies and stuff. And they're just running this huge experiment and everything, you know what I'm saying? But it does take away from the initial thought I had about this show, with them being just a spooky town where they can't escape and there are monsters that just look like humans. I would prefer it better if it was just the monsters and look like humans and they can't leave the town. But now they're adding all this other sci-fi paranormal type stuff, and so you just have to roll with the punches, you know what I'm saying? But I hope they don't keep falling more down that rabbit hole and make this show so bizarre that it makes less sense than what it does now. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.